Hello and welcome to AM Prime here on WESN Content Capital. It's Friday morning here in the capital city. Well, across Trinidad and Tobago actually, not just in Port of Spain. But it's a beautiful sunrise this morning. Not too much traffic, at least when I was coming in not too long ago. And I do apologize for the delayed start this morning, but let me just let you know, we have a very hard-working team and staff here, and they're on the ground always to ensure that all our programs go as smooth as possible. And I send out my gratitude to that entire team. But this morning we will be starting with your regional updates in a moment. But just to let you know that later on we will be joining two local artists here in Trinidad and Tobago. One, of course, courtesy North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2023, and another, you may have heard of him before actually, Mr. Dean Williams, guitarist and music lecturer here in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, he's putting on a Mother's Day show on Sunday. We'll speak to him about that. And then later on, we're going to talk to Mr. Mark Lindesay with respect to artificial intelligence here in Trinidad and Tobago. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a conversation you do not want to miss. But let's start now with your regional updates. And we start with the island of Barbados, where Prime Minister Mia Motley has issued a challenge to regional tourism players in Barbados for a major conference to consider setting up a Caribbean tour operator company. Ms. Motley made the call during the Caribbean Travel Forum in Sandals Royal, Barbados. Well, as you are aware of, or possibly not, I'll let you know now, Tobago was a part of this forum, and Caribbean Airlines are to actually start flights between Barbados and Tobago twice a week very soon. But let's take a look at this report.
Delivering the keynote address at the Caribbean Travel Forum, Prime Minister Mia Motley called on hundreds of regional industry players in Barbados for the major conference to go after a bigger slice of the tourism pie.
Nothing should stop you from leaving this country without agreeing to form a major Caribbean tour operator.
She said stories from local hoteliers suggest they, in some cases, have to pay as much as 25% of the cost of the room to foreign tour operators, and there's no reason why such businesses can't be homegrown.
We've already established how easy it is to form companies. You already have the contacts. We've already established that technology allows you to have the demographic profiles and the capacity to reach people.
Pointing also to the use of technology, particularly artificial intelligence, the Prime Minister said the only thing stopping them from taking up her suggestion is the will and vision.
If this is vital to our lifeblood, how do we allow others to control whether the tap is turned on or off with respect to the flow?
Prime Minister Motley believes the COVID-19 pandemic has presented the region's tourism sector with a chance to reset and recalibrate. While she notes the industry has been driven by foreign capital and airlift, she's hopeful that Caribbean nationals can be enfranchised to use what she calls significant amount of savings to invest in the sector. And acknowledging there's a global shortage of labor in the hospitality sector, Prime Minister Motley says she's asked for a national conversation between labor and capital with respect to tourism and hospitality workers.
People need to be treated with respect. The notion of short-term contracts or long-term probation is no more acceptable to a worker in the hospitality industry as is merciless interest rates to the owners of the capital.
The Prime Minister has also suggested there are some uncomfortable topics which must be addressed, including that visitors of colour are still not treated in the same way as people who, according to her, traditionally fit what a tourist looks like. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Or rather, an agreeable position on the part of myself. 25% of the entire revenue from one hotel room goes towards foreign tour operators. Imagine that. And the Honourable Mia Motley, well, she's actually asked, why can't it be homegrown? If this is our lifeblood, why must we depend on others to ensure that the money flows? So, a Caribbean tour operator, is it necessary? I think it is. It's an opportunity as well to ensure that it's a true Caribbean product. And whilst foreign marketing is always essential to attract tourists, obviously, the thing is, why can't we do it? Anyway, let's move on now to the island of Jamaica. Now, this is a very sad but also angering story. And I will warn you that it is a bit graphic, not in terms of the language or the imagery, but rather the story itself is disheartening. A mother is seeking justice after her child was allegedly raped at a public hospital in Jamaica. Let's take a look at this report.
Welcome back to Primetime News.
And a special welcome once again to our viewers on onespotmedia.com.
Up first this evening, a hospital is now under scrutiny after an autistic patient was allegedly raped by a hospital worker.
The teen victim has been left traumatized, and as Shamela Pullen now reports, her mother says she will stop at nothing to get justice for her child.
A mother is heartbroken. To protect her identity, we will call her Joy. Joy says her 17-year-old daughter was allegedly raped at hospital, where she's been receiving treatment from last week.
I went there Saturday, 12/21. And I went there Saturday. My daughter was not at her bedside. She was placed at the back of the ward. And her bed was near the back. You have a back door there. They're placed right there. She was placed at the back of the ward. When I went there, I couldn't find her. I was looking for her. So I tell the nurse, wait, jump up and start looking for her as well. When I went back out to the back stairs, I see her coming from upstairs. So she ran and come hug me up and said she's crying, that the person upstairs has raped her. He's in the bathroom and it's a worker there.
The child who is autistic was able to point out her attacker.
So when I went upstairs, he was bathing. He locked the bathroom door, started beat on the door and said, "Have you touched my daughter?" I said, "No." I said, "Come out." Him not coming out. So I went to the nurse to get help. And then I went to the next nurse downstairs where my daughter had and called her to attention to it. So they have him, was on the second floor with me and my daughter. So he asked my daughter, "Me touch her?" She said, "Yes, you did." The nurse asked her, she said, "Yes, you did." "Yes, he did," and she's not telling any untruth.
Now the alleged attacker is on the run.
I want to see justice done because him can't go unpunished. And hospital need to take account for what has happened as well, because she was at the nurse care. So I believe that my child is just not, to me, she's just like not safe at the hospital as well, because they never was watching her. And from the incident happened, they move her up to the nurse's station more so they can watch her. I'm not saying that why they never did that before it all happened.
The matter was reported to the hospital, the police, and the Center for the Investigation of Sexual Offences and Child Abuse, CISOCA.
They find semen because the doctor who operated will find semen inside of her. So they're giving her the pills to prevent everything if the person have sick, disease, anything at all. Because they give me a prescription yesterday to fill the person or the two, I have to buy it out of my pocket. So I buy it yesterday, I gave it back to them because they said 73 hours cannot pass without she taking the pill.
When TVJ News contacted the hospital, the chief executive officer confirmed receiving reports about the incident, adding that an investigation is underway.
If you're autistic, sometimes she'd rock. And sometimes she sit by herself and she talk to herself at times. And sometimes she laugh to herself, but if you ask her a question, she can answer it to her. She can answer it. She can tell you her full statement. That's what if anything happened to her, she can tell me what is it.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
Truly a sad story to say the least, and very much angering, and I hope justice is served indeed. The child is autistic, and Well, the alleged perpetrator is currently on the run. No further updates on that story as yet. But I am keeping an eye out for the latest reports as it relates to this particular investigation coming from that public hospital in Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, we pause on our regional updates at this time. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this morning's edition of AM Prime. Stay tuned. Welcome back to AM Prime here on WESN Content Capital. Thank you for staying with us this morning. And as you are aware of, AM Prime and WESN Content Capital are proud to partner with North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2023. And it is my privilege to welcome one of the artists who will be gracing the stage in Blanchisseuse on the 27th of May. I'm joined this morning by Miss Marva Newton. She's the leader of Kyrie Kaiso. Good morning, Miss Newton.
Hello, Keaton.
Hello.
It's good to be here. Greetings to Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, that's a very much a wonderful way to start this particular discussion. And for those who may not understand or know precisely the term Kyrie, where did you come up with that in order to establish the name Kyrie Kaiso?
Well, in 2011, when I was considering getting into a more leading role in performing, because I'd been performing by backing up others before, and I suppose we'll get to that a little later on, I looked at the word Kyrie because I wanted to describe the island vibe that I wanted to bring to the folk. And Kyrie, it means... it's the Amerindian word. It can mean island.
Yes.
It can mean it can mean water, and it's the island vibe that I want to capture, and I thought it was perfect. Kyrie, and then the alliteration Kyrie Kaiso, KK, and I went with that.
But beyond that, Kaiso, I mean, not many people actually know what Kaiso is today, and I say that. Simply because we all know what Calypso is, but understanding the original origins of Calypso, what Kaiso is, and how Kaiso evolved to Calypso, not many people are aware of that. So why have you chosen this particular genre?
Well, I'll tell you. First of all, it's a love for it. While I was growing up, there was a program on the radio hosted by Rocky McCollin, and I used to listen, and I was intrigued by these songs, because the storytelling was on point. The music engaged me as well. Mm-hmm. And I found myself, when I was around 20 years old, getting involved in Calypso musicals. There's a gentleman called Roel Gibbons, who's a playwright, and he wrote these groundbreaking Calypso musicals that charted our history and the story of Calypso and some Calypsonians. Because some of the plays, one was about Spoiler, that's a one of all. One was about the mighty Sparrow, who is the Calypso king of the world. That's 10-1. And the first one was Sing the Chorus. So I thought Sing the Chorus at Queen's Hall. And I said to myself, I would love to get involved in something like that. And I auditioned before master musician, who's no longer with us, Desmond Waite, because he was music director. And to cut a long story short, I got involved. Mm-hmm. And I was part of a One of All. That was my first play. And I've done so many since then, supporting the music, being part of the music and theater. And as I said before, it's Calypso musicals, that attracted me.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've described it more so basically as a love for it, though you've also just given us a brief history of how you've evolved in this particular industry. But was that an easy transition, moving from, as you mentioned, a backup singer, playing with many renowned musicians, into actually forming and leading your own band?
Well, everything, you've got your challenges, you've got the good moments. Through the Calypso musicals, I met an expert performer, David Barrow. David is very good at putting over, particularly the comedy in Calypso. He's a brilliant actor and he sings. And I still play for David. I played with different bands. I did a stint with All Night and the Services Brass. I mean, there's so many. And I had the opportunity to back up people, but I felt that I wanted to take a further step. So in 2011, as I mentioned, I started the group with my sister Dawn, and it was comprised of musicians with, electric instruments in the main. And over time, I decided that I wanted an acoustic sound. Mm-hmm. So it has evolved into what it is today, which actually is closer to those pre-independence type calypsos that I'm partial to. That doesn't mean that Kyrie Kaiso doesn't perform more contemporary calypsos. So we try to, switch it up a bit, try to, reharmonize just a bit, mm-hmm. But the transition wasn't a difficult one, but I would say that I started in 2011 and it's in 2019 really, as we moved along, we started to really gain a footing, meaning that people became more in tune and more aware that Kyrie Kaiso exists and we do calypso through the ages.
I think one of the barriers that you've actually broken, and I think you yourself described it as noticing that not many women were singing vintage songs, but you decided to take it with a bit of a twist, and that is adding vintage kaiso with your guitar licks, like your preference of the instruments is guitar, if I'm not mistaken. Your playing instrument.
Yes, I play guitar. Yeah. I'm the guitarist in the group. And that's the next thing too. We have a minimalist kind of instrumentation. It's guitar, it's flute. The flute brings the melodies, the guitar is the harmonies. And we have this percussion instrument that still quite a few people, they're not aware of it. It's called a cajon. It's a box on which the player sits and he or she, plays it. It's basically a box, but you get bass in there, you get some snare. So it's really, really interesting. And so with the vocals, and you put these together, we just perform, and we love doing that. In terms of, I don't see a whole lot of women. I'll tell you something. I'm not mainstream calypso. I'm not going up for any competition. That's not what I would like. And I celebrate those who do it. As a matter of fact, the whole reason for Kyrie Kaiso is to celebrate the icons and the legends of this great art form. But when I look at the landscape in terms of people who are doing calypso at corporate events and different opportunities that come up, I don't see a whole lot of women, as you said, mm-hmm. choosing to go back in time, and look at those songs. And I'll tell you something, Kitan, they're still relevant today. And in my performances, and our performances as Kyrie Kaiso, I like to weave in that relevance. Yes. You would be amazed if you would go back to a song from 40, 50, 60 years ago, bring it back, and it's still speaking about issues with which we are treating today.
Yes.
So I like that. That intrigues me, and as I said, it's relevance and connection. Mm-hmm. Once we find that way to bring the audience in, and I want to say this, whether it's at North Coast Jazz or wherever we are performing, Kyrie Kaiso invites the audience to sing along. These calypsos, they really conjure up a lot of memories, good memories of family and gatherings and that time when we were somewhere else, and it was a good time. And that's what music is about at the end of the day.
Well, I must admit, I'm looking forward to this because I have a great appreciation for Kaiso In fact, I share that with you, that I love the pre-independence songs, which many people, again, are not entirely aware of. So I think not only are you bringing something that everybody would enjoy, but something people, it may be a new experience to them, which is rather intriguing. But, you know, I'm, for one, I'm going to be in that crowd singing. So you can look out for me. I'll be the one waving crazily at you on that stage. But
thank you for that. I'm happy that you're looking forward to it. I'm one of a few who choose to, you know, explore nostalgia. And we're just happy to do it. We're just happy. So I'm looking out for you.
Well, actually, I'm glad that you mentioned nostalgia, because it's always one thing with music. It's to also invoke a sense of emotion. So that too is excellent. But speak to me about the band Kyrie Kai. So you mentioned that you and your sister were part of this band. But now, is this a family band, or has it become family?
No, it's not quite a family band, you know, because of different reasons, work commitments and that kind of thing. And it was so for me, because I worked in corporate communications for a number of years and performing as, you know, my pastime. But now I've made it the focus, along with some other projects that I do. The band comprises people like Michelle Martin Urquhart, who's on flute. She's a distant cousin, but it's not quite a family band, because I've got James Fenton, my good friend. He's on cajon and percussion, and Mrs. Nicole Carter. She is background singer. So the four of us, it sort of evolved into the four of us. And I have to say that when I originally started, the only person who has remained from that first dispensation, if you wish, is James Fenton. You know, but I like what we have. As I said, it's an acoustic sound. I play the guitar, I sing, a lot of things happening there, because I gotta get my lyrics right, I gotta connect with the audience, and I'm fully supported by 3 focused musicians who have bought into this idea of celebrating our composers, our icons, calypsonians, past and present, who committed their lives to doing this. And I feel that there is a need to highlight that. Their songs and little tidbits and trivia about their lives, you know, that could really engage people. And I needn't say the educational value of things like that. I find so often we always look outside and celebrate others and the works of others. Can we not focus on what we have just a little bit more? I'm not saying to leave out foreigners or foreign input. It's all important. But for us to really engender cultural confidence, we have to celebrate, and we have to research, and we have to know, and we have to hear and see and experience our own, that which and those who are authentically ours. Yeah?
Well, Ms. Newton, I mean, you've really done justice in this interview this morning, and I know that you're going to do justice. So when you grace the stage with Kyrie Kaiso and your band members come the 27th of May in Blanchardshires, again, I will look out for me. Just look out for me. I'll be right there in front of the stage, you know?
Most definitely. And I want to just say very quickly, we are the welcome act, so that as people come in, we're going to be hitting our performance from 2:30, because the start time is 3:30 p.m. on the 27th, and the gates open at 1 o'clock. We invite people to just come in, and as you go to your seats, you're going to be tripping to your seat. You can stand up and take us in. We will, and I hope to see you. It's going to be wonderful. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2023. And we're grateful for the opportunity to be there.
Ms. Marva Newton, to you and to Kyrie Kaiso, I wish you the best, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a great day.
You too. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ms. Marva Newton of Kyrie Kaiso. God, it's just a wonderful way to start your day when you have somebody just full of wonderful energy, that sense of positivity. But Kyrie Kaiso more so, Again, yes, nostalgia, but there is an educational aspect because it gives a greater sense of appreciation for one's culture. And for those who don't know, yes, we have soca, and before soca was calypso. But do you really know about Kaiso? Well, North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2023 from 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon. You can look out for Kyrie Kaiso. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a quick break here on WESN's AM Prime. When we return, well, we'll welcome our next guest. Stay tuned. Welcome back to AM Primed. I'm now joined by musician, referred to as the Trini Guitar Man. Mr. Dean Williams is with us via Zoom. Good morning, sir.
Yes, hi, good morning, Kitan. Good morning, everyone.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. Let's start off with this wonderful presentation, this concert actually, that you're hosting on Sunday. Iami Ifemi, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, Iami Ifemi.
What does that mean?
My mom, my love, it's Yoruba.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is obviously, to do with Mother's Day. Mother's Day, I think an evening celebrating the beauty, love and joy of mothers.
That's right. Yeah, it's a Mother's Day tribute concert. So it's dedicated to mummies and ladies and women in general.
Yes, because not all mothers necessarily are biological. But Mr. Williams, let's speak about what we can look forward to from this concert on Sunday. What is in store for those patrons who will be there to enjoy an evening of music?
Okay, it'll be a really lovely show with live music. We have 3 panelists with 3 distinctly different personalities. You're going to get the sultry Kern Somerville. You're going to get a lot of romantic music and so on, and reggae and so forth. You have Dane Gulston, who would have the house on fire. He's fiery, very energetic and exciting, with a lot of Latin and so forth. And we have Dr. Ray Holman, who's, the gentleman on the pan. You're going to hear really sweet, wonderful, beautiful Kaiso jazz. As well as myself, I'm going to be playing my music as well, which is a lot of fusion and original compositions and some smooth jazz, all dedicated to ladies on this special day, Mother's Day.
Well, that sounds like a very nice lineup. But you referred to, did some research, the multitasking axeman. And I'm seeing that you've had so much homegrown inspiration from calypso icons such as Lord Kitchener. But one name pops up, Fitzroy Coleman. Seems to be one of your inspirations. Really, I mean, quite a name and quite a legend to actually learn from.
Yes, well, I didn't meet him directly, but what happened, when I did my master's, he was the topic of my research for my master's research paper. So I got a lot of footage, a lot of found footage of him and so forth. And I interviewed a lot of people who did actually work with him. But in growing up, I have always heard his playing and, of course, studied some of his work and put pen to paper, and we have some recorded as well.
I think I've one-upped you, Mr. Williams, because I had the privilege and the opportunity to meet Mr. Coleman many, many years ago. But furthermore, in this particular light, your music, you said it's homegrown inspiration indeed, but also on Sunday we can expect some music that has been written and composed by yourself. Tell us about those songs in particular and the emotions that you felt when writing them and the emotions you hope that will be invoked on Sunday when you play them for those in attendance.
Okay, the songs I wrote have a mix of emotions. There's a song called A Piece of Your Love, which is a really romantic, lovely song that I wrote. I was inspired by my first daughter when I wrote this song, so it's going to bring, those lovely feelings for your family or for your loved ones, of any type. I have some African type songs as well, which I would say, is a product of our environment, of the ethnic influences in our environment. That song is called Tanzania. It's a jazz fusion song, all focused around our local rhythms and the guitar. And I have some other smooth jazz type songs too. I think you need to come down and hear the rest of them. But believe me, you're gonna be impressed, you're gonna be entertained, you're gonna be transported, to various places and various moods throughout the night.
I certainly agree that we need to come down and to hear the rest of them. Thanks to that sneak peek. But why a Mother's Day show? I mean, there's so many other days throughout the year. There's the long weekends when there are opportunities to hold concerts. Why did you choose to host a Mother's Day show?
Yeah, it was always a wish of mine to do a Mother's Day show. So at the beginning of the year, I, thought about it and highlighted a few different spots that I wanted to do some shows. And I think Mother's Day was one of them. So we were really fortunate to get our Central Bank Auditorium. On a thank Delise and Jeffrey for helping us, do this. And this is the first time I'm embarking on a show this size. Size venue. Done a lot of other clubs before and so forth. But for my own promotion, it's the first time I'm doing a show this large.
Oh, wonderful. You said it's at Central Bank Auditorium. For those who are watching this morning, where can they get tickets?
Okay. You can get tickets at Kenny Sports World at Trinity Mall upstairs, as well as you could get them at Island e-tickets online. And also you could get them via 681-3326 or 620-1754.
Okay, that's excellent. I think we have a poster that we can put up after the interview for people to just get some more info. But in putting together a Mother's Day show, how does one even go about selecting the variety of music? I mean, it's Mother's Day, of course, but there's no particular theme as such, if you understand where I'm coming from. So how does one choose exactly what it is we think is best to play for the crowds that will be there?
Okay, I think all artists would have different approaches. But like what you said earlier, you want to have a certain mood to transport yourself first and then your audience, So I think each person, because, you have different points of reference. But I would definitely look at something that's romantic, something that's loving, something that's emotional in the music. And that is what I would present to create, an emotional response. You could go, if it's a vocal song, you could look at the title and the lyrics, of course. You have a lot of songs that are actually dedicated to mothers and women, of course.
Well, Ear Me, Ife Me, an evening celebrating the beauty, love, and joy of mothers. Mr. Williams, thank you very much for your time, for joining me on this program this morning.
Thank you very much, Ketan, for having me.
And I apologize. I wish we had more time to expand on the conversation. But I tell you what, we can probably do a post-mortem following Sunday's events. But good luck. Enjoy it.
Thank you very much. All the best.
And congratulations, by the way, because I know you said this is the first time doing a show of this particular magnitude. So all the best to you and well done.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Mr. Dean Williams, you can look forward to this concert on Sunday, a Mother's Day show. And we will get a poster for you to actually put up afterwards. But for now, that's where we're going to have to pause because we have to break for news on the hour, ladies and gentlemen. But again, let me remind you, Ear Me, Ife Me, an evening celebrating the beauty, love, and joy of mothers this Sunday at Central Bank Auditorium. We now break for news on the hour. When we return, well, we'll get into some more conversations this morning. Stay tuned. Welcome back to AM Prime. Now, as mentioned at the beginning of our episode this morning, said we'll be speaking about artificial intelligence. Now, it's something that you most likely would have heard of, given that it's the development is taking place rather quickly, but the entire world is focusing on it for many reasons. And this morning, to dissect exactly what artificial intelligence is, we may not be able to get into the very, very deep theory of it, but we can get a basic understanding at least. I'm joined by the editor of ICNTT, Mr. Mark Lindesay. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. I'll start by asking you, exactly what is artificial intelligence? I mean, it sounds as though it's just this brain that you squish together with a lot of information, but what is artificial intelligence, and are there different types of artificial intelligence?
Okay, so artificial intelligence. It's been around for a while, but in the last, I would say, year to year and a half, it's picked up a lot of steam, largely as a result of all the research that's gone into it and the way that people have been applying it to practical use. What it is a system of networking computers and programming them so that they expand on the human capacity to digest, sort, and regurgitate information. So that you've got a lot of different applications for that model. There are visual applications, there are text applications. The ones that have been really popular recently have been in visuals, things like Lensa and Stable Diffusion, where people have been feeding prompts or actual photographs into a computer system that then extrapolates new pictures out of them. The other big name in that is ChatGPT.
Yes.
Which is the result of a large language model where a great deal of information has been digested into computer systems and is capable of producing text that is readable to humans as if it had been created by a human. So that's raised some concerns and so on.
Now you said as if it were created by a human. You know, is it not that artificial intelligence works with what humans and researchers feed it? Or is it that it creates its own?
Well, let's not say created. The term that is used to describe what artificial intelligence does is generated. So the term that is now being applied to artificial intelligence is what we call generative AI, which is to say that as a result of ingesting a certain amount of information and being fed certain prompts, in the case of ChatGPT, you may ask it a question. In the case of something like Stable Diffusion, you may enter a set of keywords and it will respond to that by generating either an image or a response.
Now, the many concerns, I mean, one of the things that is that artificial has been touted that it will help mankind with productivity. But there are also concerns with regard to that and just how influential or powerful artificial intelligence can become as a tool. With that in mind, where are we heading right now, given how in the last year and a half, how quickly it has evolved?
Okay, so guessing the future is, I have to tell you, a bit of a fool's game, because the future will always surprise you. There was no way that someone looking at a Model T Ford could imagine an earth mover. The jump from that to that is logical in retrospect, but impossible to imagine when you were looking at this thing that came along to replace horses. Right now, the applications of generative AI have us in a place where if the thing that you do is repetitive and falls along the lines of certain rules that are predictable, there's a very good chance that that job will not be done by humans in the future.
Okay. So then artificial intelligence comes with, I suppose, a list of obligations, trying to understand what it does not do, as well as analyzing its risks.
Well, okay. Analyzing risk is something that governments do when it comes to technologies like that. Analyzing personal risk, which is to understand, one, what you do, how that could be adapted to an artificial intelligence model, And then how you plug into that is kind of important. The other thing that you have to understand is that particularly in terms of text generative AI, these machines are not left to run on their own. The way that they work is they input a vast amount of information, and when you send a query to it, it is working on a pool of information that no human being can match. You can't consume and hold and sort through that kind of information in real time. That's just not how the human brain works. So that I'll give you an example. If I tell you 2 and 2, your answer will be 4.
Yes.
Yes. To a computer, 2 and 2 may have 2 entirely different reasons. It may be 2 plus 2, or 2 and, the word and could mean associated with or adjunct to, and it may decide that an equally valid answer is 22. And that would be just how it thinks. So a lot of work is being done, particularly in popular tools like ChatGPT, by humans to filter and train these models so that they don't generate, gibberish. Answers that sound perfectly logical, but are either completely untruthful or completely illogical. Because they don't operate with the restraints, conditioning, and learning that humans go through in their formative years. So the two equally opposite things may seem perfectly logical to an artificial intelligence. So you'll see that there are a lot of people who are in the business of training these models, which is to say, this is an acceptable answer, that is not an acceptable answer, and that's going to go on for a while.
Well, would this also allow for improved analysis and data-driven decisions? I mean, given what you just said and suggested, by it can have two different meanings, but would it also lead to an improvement in data-driven analysis and decision-making?
I would say that it already has. Let's talk about the business that we're in. Let's talk about journalism.
Yeah.
Let's say reporting sports, and these are things that are happening now. There's a company called Universal Robots in Europe who do a kind of generative AI designed for journalism. So that there are countries in Europe where they're mad for football. So they have endless leagues and endless results and so on. So something like Universal Robots can be programmed to look at statistical data generated by all these leagues and turn them into stories. So that, for instance, it could look at a spread of a 1-goal win and say it was closely fought. It could look at a 20-1 win and say it was a total walkover. It can insert information into its reporting that makes it sound like it was written by a human. It doesn't go overboard in that because it's really just doing these small capsule reports in text. But I mean, this is a thing that people are doing. They are filling websites with information that's generated by robots that is perfectly acceptable because it would take hours and hours for a human being to do it, and it can be generated in a matter of minutes by an AI program.
Does that, I know this sounds a bit peculiar, but again, for the sake of the audience, does that mean that there's a possibility you and I can be out of a job?
If the work that we do depends on minor intellectual input, let's say, for instance, rewriting a press release. You could create a series of templates as to how a press release should be rewritten, and checking that before publication would not be the business of a writer, it would be the business of an editor. And there's a great chance there'd be very little work that would have to be done on it.
So then, even though it's revolutionizing industries, one of the concerns, even though it's revolutionizing industries, is the mere fact that it might make human beings and their tasks, it could lead to this, because as you said, it's a fool's game to predict the future, but as you just mentioned, some tasks obsolete.
Yes, I think I could safely say that there will be some tasks that will be obsolete for humans. The tasks will still exist, but they'll be done through automation.
And with that being said, now let's speak about how it can be, we've understood how it could be beneficial But what about the risks involved in this? Are we giving artificial intelligence too much power and too much influence?
That is a question I think that's best understood by oversight. If you had an insurance company that was generating quotes using AI based on input from clients, and you weren't looking at what it was doing, and you were legally liable for what the results produced and the quotes it produced, you could find yourself in some hot water. So any business, I think, that did that would probably want to give the quotes generated by AI a quick once-over or check in on what it's doing from time to time to ensure that it's in alignment with what the company expects a human would produce. So there will always be a requirement, I believe, for oversight, at least until such time as the way that this information is processed is taken to another level.
So therefore, implementing artificial intelligence in the workplace or in the working environment, is it an investment that businesses should consider, or is it that we're not quite there as yet?
I think any business that is doing business and intent on profitability is probably already looking at some form of AI in their business processes. Some of them may be already using it very quietly. I'll tell you, I always like to bring this down to things that I do. To do reporting, I would sometimes have to go over a recording. So I would sit down there and pause or slow down the recording and type. I type very quickly so I can type. I don't do that anymore. There is an AI-powered transcription tool in Microsoft Office. It's not the greatest transcription tool in the world, but it comes as part of the bundle. And I'll toss that audio file at that and get time codes. And whenever I want to double check what's being said or check it against the transcription, so that's something that I would have had to take a lot of time typing out, the transcription software just does it. So that is already happening. Those are tools that are available. There are things, I think, the thing that people need to be considering is if you are doing a job that is likely to be or eligible to be replaced by AI, how can you raise your game so that the input that you have into that work process takes you to another level of engaging with the business process? And a lot of that has to do with people and their decisions about what they do in the job they do. It may, for instance, be more profitable rather than learning all of that to go and sell doubles. I mean, I have no problem with selling doubles. But there are choices that people have to make along the way. I don't think there's going to be an AI plumber, for instance. So there are things that will become more valuable to society as a result of the fact that automated tools are doing some other things.
So let's speak about another aspect of this. Given how the world is evolving and how technology has evolved, and mankind and technology, that relationship there, one of the biggest threats now, of course, is security across the world, cybersecurity in particular. Artificial intelligence and security. What are the risks associated with that and the benefits as well?
Well, the benefits are that cybersecurity defenses are much faster at responding to threats because they can extrapolate threat scenarios out of raw data much faster than human beings can. The problem that arises, of course, is that artificial intelligence makes tools that break, say, brute force codes much more potent, so that older tools that simply did machine replication of possible passwords may not necessarily be the way that password breakers work in the future, for instance. They may be powered by AI. That AI may be influenced by ancillary factors associated with the company they're trying to break into. There's a bit of a hot mess going on there right now, where previously unbreakable levels of encryption now are being reconsidered in the light of AI.
So given that, also, is there a risk in terms of security to utilizing AI? Because you mentioned earlier at the beginning of this interview that artificial intelligence is a set of computers generating information. With a set of computers, given the AI, for example, like ChatGPT, is it easy now to actually manipulate artificial intelligence? Is it secure?
That has a lot to do with the keepers of the language models that are being developed. And we talk a lot about ChatGPT, but it is not the only language model in existence. And there are a lot of commercial tools being put on the market that use alternative language models. There are tools, for instance, that generate text for websites. So if you put up a website and you want to have text on it, there are tools that will generate things given information that you input into it. So you don't have to write it. It just spews out information that you can post to a website quite cheerfully.
I think No, go ahead, Mr. Lindsay, go ahead.
Yeah. The quality of the language model and the way that it's supervised is one of the things that I think is going to separate models. So that people will go like, okay, what language model is this based on? Is this something that I want to be associated with? We're seeing that playing out in a big way with how Google is formulating its response to ChatGPT. Google has its own AI bot that is a bit behind ChatGPT, but they are trying to find ways to implement bot that give it a bit of an advantage over ChatGPT, and they're still very much in the process of working out how that's going to work.
Now, most recently, the University of the West Indies has held a conference in regards to, you just mentioned ChatGPT, though it's not the only form of I think you've mentioned languages there, but in that sense, it's also a concern because it may also allow for students to have less responsibility, less task, and perhaps cheating the system. Is there any sort of way to try and prevent this? Because, okay, for example, you know, we used to, when you used to write your paper, you used to put it through something, a program called Turnitin. Now, if ChatGPT is generating, for example, papers that are unique, it's considered the author's own, how do we now decipher the genuinity of that document?
AI.
Again, another AI tool.
There are AI tools that look for patterns that are in alignment with the way the text is generated through ChatGPT and other AI text generation tools. There's also talk of embedding specific patterns into text that's generated by these models so that other investigating tools can spot them very easily. So that what we're more likely to see in the near future is less outright copy and paste and more, okay, ChatGPT gave me this response to these questions. Let me see how I can take that along with things that I have read and turn it into a paper. There's still a chance of plagiarism because you may copy paste too much of the stuff that comes out of a generative model, but it's more likely going to be inspiration rather than a desperation, I suppose.
Now, as we conclude this conversation, would you believe that currently artificial intelligence presents more of an opportunity or a threat as we conclude?
I think it's equal parts of both. I think people need to be aware of what is happening, what kinds of things are happening. I mean, there's actually very little difference between ChatGPT, for instance, and Siri. Siri was working from a large language model, and we cheerfully accepted Siri as part of our lives if you happen to have an iPhone. I think it's a matter of understanding what is happening, trying to get a grasp on how it affects you and what you can do in response to that. But I don't think it's an insurmountable problem, but it's certainly one that we need to be aware of.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because many people watching might say this is of no concern to me. You know, I don't really care about this. It's precisely for that reason why we've had this conversation this morning. Education is key, Mr. Lindesay, and you're of the belief that people should prescribe more to keeping up to date with the evolution of this particular form, well, I guess, of technology, artificial intelligence.
Well, I've dedicated 27 years of my life to writing about technologies. I think it would be safe to say I think people should be aware of and understand the nature of the technology that governs their lives.
Certainly. Well, Mr. Mark Lindesay, I want to thank you very much for joining me this morning on the program. I know that I would be contacting you again in the near future, given how fast this is happening. But appreciate your time and for the information and the education, because I'll be honest with you, I've learned a lot myself this morning. So I'm very much grateful for that. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good day. That was Mr. Mark Lindesay, editor, Tech New TT. Ladies and gentlemen, as he said, keep up, be aware of what is taking place. It is very, very important. Remember, the world is not waiting on anybody, and we're forging ahead. Artificial intelligence, of course, as we are moving along as human beings, we also have to understand that it's both a threat, but also an opportunity. So I guess we'll see what happens. Yeah. Anyway, let's quickly get into one more regional update with Antigua and Barbuda. Now, last weekend they had 19 vehicular collisions between Friday and Sunday. The crashes have resulted in serious injuries. Law enforcement are concerned about their frequency, especially heading into this weekend. Let's take a look at this report.
We had 11 road accidents on Friday, and out of those 11, 5 were rear-end collision. And they spread across. We had on Friesdale Road, we had on Old Perm Road, we have on Sir George Walter Highway.
Superintendent of Police Elson Kwame laments curbing collisions on the nation's highways and byways has been a challenge for the traffic department. He believes the recent spate of collisions is indicative of a wider issue.
Persons are not concentrating, they are not keeping the eyes on the road, and the slightest glance off, you could find yourself in a traffic collision.
Several efforts have been made to reduce the frequency of collisions. People caught holding or using a mobile device or engaging in any other activity that distracts them while driving are liable to a fine of $500.
See that persons don't want to stretch the pocket too much, so we see some improvement in compliance in those regards. And I hope that drivers will capitalize and just keep your seatbelt on at all times and take your hands off the cell phone.
The roundabout at Sir George Walter and Sir Sidney Walling highways has been one of several hotspots for minor collisions. The head of traffic says the international standard for maneuvering a roundabout is no longer being enforced.
Over 2 years, the traffic department was trying to educate the public as to the international way of using the roundabout, but we're just not adapting to it. Hence, we have to make the changes, and drivers are more comfortable now maneuvering around these roundabouts.
Here's what some of the road users had to say regarding the decision.
It's better right now, it's simpler. Well, I'm adjusting it very fine. I've been doing it this way the first time too, so I'm coping all right.
I've been adapting to the new roundabout, great. But you see what happened? Some people are not adapting because they're not following the instruction.
The head of traffic shares what the police will be doing to address mounting collisions.
We still need some more resources to get the work done, but we are trying our best to do more patrols. Patrols will help, because the presence of the police on the road make a lot of difference.
Rakib Aparicio reporting for ABS News.
Ladies and gentlemen, we all need to be very careful when we're traveling on a daily basis. I mean, my great-grandfather always said growing up that when you go out on the road, you're not driving for yourself, you have to drive for the others as well. Believe me, there are a lot of crazy, irrational drivers out on the road. I don't understand. I mean, we all want to get to somewhere on time. We also want to get there alive. Anyway, just please be mindful of that when you continue your journeys. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're going to have to end it. Happy Friday. Have a great one today. Enjoy it. Live it up. And just let it be a productive one, of course, but at the same time, smile. Today is a good day to have a great day and a great weekend ahead. Happy Mother's Day to all mothers across our beautiful nation, all mothers across the world. For everything that you do, for everything that you've done, for everything that you are going to do for us, well, we love you, we cherish you, and we appreciate you. But for now, this is AM Prime. I'm Keaton Shah, and I'll see you bright and early, 6 o'clock on Monday morning. Should things go good, should things go well, and I hope they do for all of us. Bye-bye, Trinidad and Tobago.